maybe real quick, Jim. I know we're maybe running over here on time, but the first.
There's no time.
no time
This
limit.
is my God of podcast, Greg. There's no time
Okay,
limit.
well,
This is where Wise Dog gets mad.
Welcome to My God of Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I are joined by our friend Greg Fawcett. Greg tells us how his ATD tailgate got started, and he recaps our recent trip to see Kirby speak at an event in Charlotte. As always, remember to check out store.mygodapodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at MyGodAPodcast. Finally, we'd love you to check out our presenting sponsor, Oxyatime, at oxyatime.com. That's AXIATIME.com. Now, let's join the conversation in progress.
but
All right, now we're recording after we had the should we be the classic My God of Podcast should we be recording moment.
It's my favorite moment of the podcast is should we be recording?
Yeah. Well, I'm coming in live from a new location, same location, new desk. So apologies. I know Fletcher, I know you've been looking, you wanted more My God of Podcast. It was my fault. I've been building a new desk for my home office. It's good. It's done. It's ready to go. But on the special occasion, had to bring in a special guest with us. So frequent recipient of dog bones. When you hear us talk about Greg and Greg's tailgate and shout out to Greg, we've got the man here. Greg Fawcett is with us. Greg, welcome to My God of Podcast.
hey guys, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's been
The man, the myth, the legend.
That's right. It's been a long time coming. I say that, although, it's a relationship that isn't that old. It's pretty young, right? That we've all met each other. Greg was so gracious to host us. Actually, I would say, the first game, John, that we ever attended together as hosts of My God Podcast, Greg hosted us at the tailgate at the Georgia Clemson game in Charlotte to open the 2021 season. That was the first time we all met.
That's right. We were doing the ATD tailgate, right?
Yeah.
It was the beginning of a good run. So far, ATD tailgate's been undefeated during the regular season, and hope to continue that in 2023.
Amen.
That is a good call. It was so funny. Greg, was that your first big? Because did you already have the tailgate in Athens at that point? Or
no, so
okay.
I had done many tailgates in Athens over the years, but much, much smaller, really just kind of like the group I was going to the game with and maybe a handful of friends. But through the Twitterverse, I really met so many people, particularly during that COVID season, and everyone was just talking about football and wanting to get back to Athens. And the Clemson game was really the first opportunity for us to have a full crowd. And, I don't know how long, almost felt like 2 years. But, and Jim, as we had talked about, I grew up in Atlanta suburbs like you did, and, but I'd lived in Charlotte for quite a while. And so to have the dogs come here to town was just, to me, the perfect opportunity to, try and pull together a big tailgate. And, the best played plans, never seemed to always work out. And what I mean by that is I had hired a couple of college kids that go to Queens College down in Charlotte to come help me with the setup. And they're on the lacrosse team. And lo and behold, one of them had gotten COVID and the other two had to go into the protocol at that time. So I ended up with essentially no hired help to put the tailgate together on Friday. And, we were expecting, or I was expecting, at least 150 plus people. I bought barbecue for 200. And long story short, I begged and pleaded with my brother-in-law, who's a Wofford Terrier, no connection to Georgia, to please come down and help me and bring my nephew and any friends, and I'll pay them. And so they really saved the day. So they came down on early Saturday morning and helped me set up, and the rest was history. But that turned out to be a fantastic day, not only because the result of the game, kind of the start of what was an amazing season, but just getting to meet so many people in person and just enjoyed that so much. You have that connection on Twitter, but then when you actually get to meet people, I met Lou, your dad, and you and John and Bobby Wilson. And I mean, the list, Rude's Dixie Dog and so many people. I could go on, all day, but that led to, us getting together in Athens several times in 2021 at a tent that I had just joined that year.
Okay.
Kind of fully. I had been tailgating with those guys prior to COVID, but not kind of as a full-fledged member, if you will, and then went in with them on that tent on the Reed Hall lawn in 2021 and really just made for a nice venue for people to stop by if they're headed into the game or want to come and, stay for a while. It's been a good setup.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I had heard that story about the hired help issues in Charlotte. I'll tell you one thing, Greg, I didn't notice that anything was off.
Yeah, well, it was I was a little stressed out. Let's put it that way. Sure. I felt like maybe I bit off more than I can chew, but I did take off kind of the Thursday and Friday leading up. And because it was local, it made it a little bit easier. I ended up renting a Hertz kind of Sprinter van to load everything in because I couldn't get it all in the back of my Suburban. So between the Hertz rental, and then actually packing my Suburban as well and having my brother-in-law drive one of the cars, we were able to get everything down and unloaded. And I think we went through, I did the math, I think it was about 25 cases of beer, plus a ton of alcohol. I mean, went down to Frugal McDougal and bought at least 4 or 5 handles of bourbon and various, vodka, gin, you name it. And I don't think there was a drop left by the time packing things up around 7:30. But that was a good long run too, because we got out there early afternoon and the kick wasn't till late. And so
yeah. Well, and don't forget the White Claws. There were White Claws for Bobby Wilson.
We had White Claws, and it was it turned out well. I mean, the barbecue and the food was good, and just use that as a springboard. And I'm just can't believe how many really good friendships have been born from that day, and continuing to get together, and even if it's just for a quick beer or hello, it's so nice to see people when you're in Athens or in Los Angeles or wherever, Indianapolis, wherever the dogs might take us. I mean, Jim, we got to spend 5 or 10 minutes in a cold, wet parking lot in front of SoFi Stadium in January, and that was pretty cool.
Before and after.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's really cool. Yeah, and I know. So we talk a lot about the ABC stores, so that and our dilemmas that Greg and I have with that in North Carolina. That for those not in the know, Frugal McDougal is across the state line. So when you go down, you can go down to South Carolina, and they've got a bit of a better selection. Which I jumped the gun, and I just took my first sip of what I've got tonight, and I have to say it's excellent. So this was a Hunt the Jones recommendation that I so Greg, one thing I'll do often, because I am still newer to bourbon, is if I see something that I haven't had, I text the Johns. So I text John Powell and John Smith, aka John Tweet Sports, and Hunter, and I'm like, have you guys had this? Like, is this good? So I'm having this Knob Creek smoked maple. I don't know if you guys have had that. It is fantastic.
Yeah, I don't typically like flavored whiskeys or bourbon, but that smoked flavor that they have is pretty authentic. It's nice. And Knob Creek does a really, really good job with all of their bourbon.
Yeah, I agree. The Knob Creek 9 is fantastic.
Yeah, that was my that was the first recommendation, John, from you to me when I first started. That was I think the first My God a Podcast bourbon.
Yeah, and it's a nice high proof too. A lot of Knob Creek stuff punches in it well above 100 proof. So
it was it had to have been either that or a Maker's 46.
Right. Yes. True. Another My God a Podcast special.
The official bourbon of My God a Podcast. I am partaking in, since we have we have an elite guest. Mm-hmm. I'm partaking in my elite full tilt, bottled
your infinity
bourbon,
bottle.
My infinity bottle. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Very nice. Just so has it, I'm wearing the elite t-shirt.
Oh, there
as
it
we
is.
record. I don't know if those are available anymore. I can't remember. We may not have. This may have come down. I don't remember.
And
Nice.
I am, although because of the technical difficulties, am not pictured, but Ancient Age 10 Star, which I tweeted about recently. I came across a couple different places, but I ended up obtaining about 4 or 5 handles, and it's fantastic for the $30 or so that you pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is really, really good. I just wish it was more readily available. But,
Greg, the last bit of bourbon that I put in my infinity bottle was 10 Star. So I've got a little bit of 10 Star in me as well.
nice. There you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
I like
we're
the value too. It's not that, it's not only good, but to pay $30 for something to be that good is unusual.
It's basically Blanton's.
Yeah, that's everyone calls it the poor man Blanton's, and not to go back to California and our adventure at the liquor store there, Jim, but I'm sure you noticed the Buffalo Trace products and other bourbons seem to be readily available and in decent quantity at just about any store you went in, and
yeah.
at maybe $30 a fifth for Buffalo Trace, which you'll never see it on the shelf here in North Carolina, and if you do in South Carolina, it's probably special allocation. So that was besides the dogs winning the national championship, it was and dinner and a fantastic dinner that we had with a group that I can talk about a little bit later. That was the little bit of bourbon shopping I did out there was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I actually, I think I sent this to you guys that I actually had Blanton's for the first time last Saturday. I had never had it. So I was
Really?
Yeah, I'd never had it. So I was at that tasting event and they had it there. It was funny because there's a few guys at this thing that were newer and didn't really know, and they'd be like, "What should I try?" I was like, "Well, the Blantons." Like, if nothing else, you can go tell people that you've had Blantons. It was pretty funny. So it was good. It was good.
Yeah, no, it's you can definitely taste the smoothness, and if you've had another bourbon, prior, and then you switch to you get pour blends, you can absolutely. There's definitely a difference in taste and texture, and that's why it's hard to find.
Yeah, for sure.
Plus, everybody loves the pony.
Oh yeah.
Well, this one was like
cool
a nice.
bottle.
I think I sent you guys the video, and they had like the display thing where the bottle was sitting in the middle, had the pony on top, and they had all the ponies around it. So it was a nice centerpiece for the tasting that we had the other night. And that's pretty cool.
That's cool. I can't imagine what they paid for that.
Yeah. I don't even know who brought it. Cause this was like everyone bring a bottle, kind of thing. And folks were tasting stuff, and somebody brought Blands. So that was pretty sweet.
One of my favorite pages that I follow a group on Facebook in the Atlanta area called Allocated Bourbon or something like that. And one of my favorite posts that is like pretty much a week, every week, someone will post a picture of the Hartsfield Airport. Like if you go into the duty free at Hartsfield Airport, there's a whole wall of Blantons just sitting at the airport. And it's always funny because John and I have talked about like how that price like basically has been going up and up and up. Like it used to be like $100 and I thought that was crazy. Then it was like $120 and everybody thought that was crazy. Now it's $140.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Which
just
is
absolutely
still
crazy.
at that price. If you happen to be traveling international, can get it as below what you're going to find it. The cheapest I've seen it was at a liquor store in Atlanta. It was $160. Which that's pricey for a fifth.
Yeah.
But they did have it. I think they had 2 bottles. It wasn't in high quantity, but they did have it. And along with some other Buffalo Trace products, they had some Weller and Eagle Rare, and all at pretty decent prices. So
yeah, especially for
you come across a good find.
Yeah, especially for like a 90, 93 proof, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah, seriously. I know, John. Because I always like forget this. Let's get in. You want to get into your signature question a bit because I don't know how much that I know this even.
Yeah. So, Greg, one of the things that we like to ask everyone when they come on is just like, what you're probably one of the biggest Georgia fans that I know. There's probably about 3 or 4 of them out there that are maybe I feel like are bigger than you. But what's your Georgia story, man? Like, How did you become a fan? Like, and how did you become such a
I think I was just
rabid
kind of,
follower?
yeah. So maybe born into it. Neither one of my parents attended UGA, but I had an aunt that attended, and it was my dad's sister, and so she was younger. So when I was growing up, some of my earliest memories would be, going over to my grandfather's house and really listening to the game on the radio on WSB because very few games were, on television back then. I'm showing my age. I don't think it existed, or we didn't have cable. Let's put it that way. So it was an over-the-air antenna. So unless ABC was airing the game, you listened to it on the radio, and that was how I, just listened to the Dogs in the 70s and in the 80s, and went to my first game in Athens in 1987. I was a junior in high school, and it was the Auburn game. Which was, a big rivalry, and just was, as a 17-year-old kid, I was just blown away by, the pageantry that is Athens on a SEC game day, and that was probably it was my first introduction, I think, to tailgating as well. I wasn't setting up a tailgate, but was an invited guest of the folks I was with, the parents, and just after that, it was hook, line, and sinker. So I've always been a Dog fan, and and even during the 90s, which I know you all were undergrads then, in the latter part of the 90s, early 2000s was a tough time, but I never gave up. Always watching, and you start to see some of the other programs in the SEC win national championships and win multiple, and you're like, when is Georgia's time going to come? And I'm starting here. I'm 40 years old. I'm 45 years old. Is it ever going to happen?
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, 2 years in a row. And I told myself, as long as Georgia's playing the national championship game, I'm going. I don't care what I need to do or, what it costs. That's something that after 40 years, you don't ever know when it's going to happen again. So don't take it for granted. So I've been very, very blessed, fortunate to have been to both of those games. So I don't know, John, but that's it. I've just kind of born into it. Always been a Dog, and will always be a Dog.
That's awesome, man.
Greg, were you at the national championship in Atlanta in the 17 season?
I did not go.
Okay. So you definitely have to keep going.
Yeah.
Because when you're there, we went.
I was just about to say.
Yeah, and it was one of those where I had spent a considerable amount of money taking my dad up to Notre Dame, to the Notre Dame game.
Yeah.
And that was, honestly, that trip was probably more expensive than either of the national championship trips. And I don't, the airfare, and then we actually stayed in South Bend, which was like Athens on a game day. I don't think we paid like some, king's ransom for a hotel, but
Right.
I had spent a considerable amount there, and then had gone to several games in Athens, and I was just like, and maybe just sit it out. And anyway, the work at that time was keeping me a lot busier. So I regret not being there, but I guess in hindsight, it saved me a little heartache and my wallet a little money as well.
Yeah, it was not a good one to be at. And like I just remember like getting out of there afterwards. Afterwards was insane too, because like my dad and I took MARTA, and like MARTA was a complete disaster after the game. So
yeah, and I heard getting in was even worse with the president being there.
Oh yeah, it was horrible.
It was raining and
Yep.
Yeah, it would have been a lot more tolerable had we won.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe one of these days we can plan a national championship game with good weather. I mean, I guess Indianapolis, technically there wasn't like a weather event, but was a little cold.
It was really cold. And then, the LA was the SoFi, the stadium was really cool. But
Mhm.
other than that, I wasn't blown away by anything, certainly the restrictions around the parking and tailgating, which we were able to bypass for the most part. But it was
Yes.
so spread out. I know we talked a little bit about this when we were together a couple weeks ago, but in Indianapolis, everyone was concentrated, both the Alabama and Georgia fans kind of downtown, and you just found your bar or your area.
Mhm.
And, it was just, I felt more connected in Indianapolis to the Georgia crowd, whereas in LA, and until we got in the stadium, everyone was all over. I mean, Southern California is a big place, so
Right.
um,
Yeah, Dog Nation was definitely more spread out. I mean, yeah, the whole crew, everybody was kind of all over the place. So yeah, that was definitely different. That was the thing, is I was excited about LA. In contrast, just because it had been so cold in Indianapolis. But if you could have like the Indianapolis layout with the way the weather is supposed to be in California,
oh
that
yeah.
would be perfection.
If
We
we
need
would have
to
gotten
find that place.
even if we would have got an overcast day, like some
Yeah.
marine layer, it would have been fine. But I mean, it
Yeah.
poured rain like all day, and I think it was raining when we left. I mean, it's like it didn't stop. It was very unusual. But
Yeah.
I'll say this: it didn't impede the Dog Nation at all. I think it might have fueled us
I
some.
think so.
I certainly wasn't bothered by it, but that was I think helped by quite a few $22 Modelo's or whatever I was paying, plus all the bourbon I drank before the game. So was feeling no pain. And we had a fantastic group. I'll tell a little side story, but Bubby Dean and his wife, Bobby Wilson and Anna, Krishna Wall and her husband and her brother Jake and his wife Betsy, and Pup Dog. All of us stayed down in the Huntington Beach area, and I arranged for like an airport bus, limo bus, to pick us up on Monday morning. So we loaded up all the stuff that I was going to take up to the tailgate spot around 9:30, and commenced shortly thereafter with morning beverages, and rode up on the bus together. And then Jim, you and Melissa were at the tailgate setup, which turned out pretty nicely. That was a little bit of me putting a lot of trust in that company, Tailgate Concierge, which did great work. And then you saw us after the game. The bus eventually came back and found us, like everyone else, trying to get out of there. It was difficult, and it was probably an hour or so after it was the scheduled pickup. But we had a great time on the bus. Drank a lot of adult beverages, told stories, cheered the dogs, and everyone got home safe. So pretty
Man,
good.
what an epic crowd that was.
Yeah, seriously.
Was this where you guys had like a giant round table? I feel like I saw a picture
Yeah,
of round
yeah. So we
table
went to
dinner.
one of Bobby's old haunts in Newport Beach, and anyone who knows Bobby or follows him, he's got exquisite dining taste, and to say the least, and really good taste in wine and other things. And so this restaurant, can't remember the name of it, but anyway, it was top shelf, and it overlooked the marina in Newport Beach. And Bobby had arranged for a private room with a round table, and he had gone out and gotten 2 magnums of Camus wine as starters. And we ordered, I don't know, Bubby Dean said that Seafood Tower was so high it's going to need lights so the FAA can give the planes clearance or something like that. It was hilarious. Only Bubby could say it that way. But Seafood Towers, pork lollipops, you name it. I mean, I was full by the time we were done with appetizers, and then of course Wagyu beef, and then dessert. But yeah, it was one of the best meals. I'm not just saying that I might have ever had. It was that good, and it was a fantastic way to lead into Monday. and
Oh,
everything. So yeah, Bobby was a tremendous host in arranging that, and so we all got to all the folks on the bus I mentioned before were there, and definitely a good life memory.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah. I know. So you mentioned in there, Greg, that we recently got to see each other in Charlotte. So and we can talk a little about what was going on there. But first off, the funniest thing about the whole thing to me is that we met. Well, we in person met back in the 2021 Clemson game, and then we've tailgated together at Georgia, at Mercedes-Benz in LA. But we live about 15 minutes from each other, and we finally hung out again in Charlotte.
Yeah,
I drove by your house this morning, by the way, or your neighborhood at least. But I was up in Davidson this morning. But yeah, so we hung out in Charlotte. I was so thankful for you to give me the invite to this. So there was an event in Charlotte down at the Quail Hollow Club where Kirby Smart was the guest speaker. And Greg, again, appreciate you inviting me and letting me tag along with you.
Oh my, yeah, Jim. When I got the invitation, I was like, "You're the first person I thought of." There's not a lot of dog alumni here that I know well enough or that to ask, and yeah. So I didn't have, for some reason I didn't have your phone number, but I've got Lou's, your dad, and so I texted Lou and I said, what's Jim's number? I want to invite him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." So yeah, it worked out, and yeah, I've seen Coach Smart speak a couple times in that type of setting, and it was unbelievable. I know you and I kind of both almost, walked out there, felt like we were walking on air. It was just, the way that he, was spoke, and it was just almost like he was talking to you personally. Mm-hmm. And, I think you may recall, Jim, we were standing around having a cocktail before dinner, and he just walked by and seemed so approachable, and he was having a good time and, talking to people. And it's just really, it's one of those things like, wow, I can't believe I'm kind of standing here, 5 feet away from, Coach Smart. I don't want to fanboy too much, but it was pretty cool. And either Jim or I went up and asked to take our picture, although I at least will say I was tempted to, but I showed some restraint. But it was cool. And his remarks were, and Jim, I think helped me out here, but
yeah.
It was, I wouldn't go as far to say they were not prepared remarks. I think he probably had some talking points that he wanted to hit, but by no means was he reading off cue cards or any type of prepared speech, which was great. And
yeah,
the other times I'd mentioned I've seen Coach Smart speak, same thing. He just really is able to kind of speak from the heart, and off the top of his head, it comes across as it should, as very genuine and real. And I think that's why he connects so well with the players and people in general. And, looking back, people kind of looking at, I saw some people had kind of posted about it that were there and, liking him to a CEO. And I think that's a very good description. And he's able to, like a good CEO, get the most out of his people. I mean, if you think about the SEC and the athletes, almost all the teams in the SEC, all of them have very good athletes, some better than others, some might have more 4 or 5 stars, but they're all going to have good athletes. But it's getting the most out of those athletes. And that's kind of what he talked about, Jim, to me, is getting them to buy in. And you hear him talk about culture so much, but, hearing him speak and the stories that he was telling, and it seems like he likens it at every year, our company, and he was talking about it in those terms, we have 100 people in our company, and every year we have, I think he said 20 new people come in our company. And I think he's referring to the 20 new scholarship players. And you have to have those 20 new people adapt pretty quickly to your culture so your company can continue to be successful. And it makes total sense. And where I'm going with this is that he lets the players really lead. and he expects a lot out of them, but he's built that culture, and now it's really becoming tradition where I'll call it self-regulating. Like if someone's not doing what they're supposed to do at a workout, or they're not, going to class, seems like he's got this is me, outward observer, just kind of speculating, but it's like he's got the players like, okay, well, you need to handle that. Like, we're family and we take care of those things. So just, and he talked also, Jim, and you helped me here about the New Zealand rugby team. And which was, I don't know, John, if Jim told you a story, but Coach Smart asked, what is the most successful or winningest professional sports franchise over the last 100 years? And people like the Yankees, or throughout a handful of professional teams. Is like, no.
One guy said the Raiders, and Kirby laughed out loud, by the way. That was awesome.
Yeah.
He's like, did someone say the Raiders? What?
Yeah. So, Jim, do you call it's New Zealand? And I want to say it's the Blacks.
Yes, it's the
All
New
Blacks.
Zealand. Yeah, the All Blacks.
Yeah. I'm loosely familiar because following soccer, you have to watch, at least for a long period of time. I used to have to watch BBC. Like the BBC channel would stream in the United States on the channel like Fox or something like that. And I used to always pick up on the sports that came on before and after, and they would talk about rugby and the All Blacks. And I was very aware that the All Blacks was the answer to that question.
Yeah, see, I had no idea, but I have a snippet from their Wikipedia page. So they are the New Zealand National Rugby Union team, commonly known as the All Blacks. It says they are considered the country's national sport. Famed for their unmatched international success, All Blacks have often been regarded as the most successful sports team in human history. So, and this is where. So, what was it, Greg? He was basically saying like, the way Kirby got to this was he was talking about, did he think we would repeat last year? And he actually said like, hell no, I didn't think we were going to repeat. Like he's like, I knew we were going to be good. I knew we were going to compete. I knew we were going to be up there, but to go back to back, losing all those players, he was rattling off, the 15 players to the draft, all that same kind of stuff. But his point was like that team was still fairly easy to motivate because of those things that would make you think they wouldn't repeat. Right. He could say things like, you guys haven't done this. It was those guys. Those guys are gone. They're in the NFL. Right. Like you have to do this for yourselves. This is new to you. And now with this next team, you can't say that as much. Right. Like, yes, we're losing, we're losing the quarterback. Right. Like we're losing some key guys, but we're not, we're going to have a lot more actually coming back from the 22 team than we did from the 21 team. And so he had to look at it from a different angle, a different lens. And so he went out searching for other examples of teams that were able to maintain success. And this is where he landed on the All Blacks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he said that the team are studying them and what makes the All Blacks successful, almost like a business school case study is what he likened it to. At least that's how I understood it. And so I thought that's really cool. They're going to study why has this team been so successful to win 85% of their matches over the last 100 years. And then I didn't write it down, Jim. I thought I had written it down on a napkin because I was trying to scroll down some of the, cool sound bites just so I can remember it all. But there was some phrase that he used. But
I've got it. I did jot it down. I have a theory that this could be the next. Every year there's something, right? So we've had keep chopping. We've had you're either a leader, you're not. We've had nobody cares. And this one is better never rests.
Better never rest. That's right. That's what it was. Yeah, better never rest.
And we've already seen a player, either a tweet or Instagram post, use that in one of their posts. So it's already starting to circulate through the players. So I start to see it surface a little bit. It's pretty cool.
The other one that I did write down was change is inevitable, growth is optional.
Yeah, that was good.
So things are going to change. That's inevitable. But if you don't grow and find ways to get better, then it's going to pass you by. And he talked about motivation was a big thing, and what did he talked about? I'm trying to think about it, Jim, where he said, "Look, we've won back-to-back national championships, but we can't go out and continue to do the same thing that we've been doing." It's counterintuitive to what I would think, or most people would think. It's like, well, let's just keep doing what we're doing. And I think he's the complete opposite. It's like, no, we've got to find ways to get better. We got to change things up. And the way he spoke about it is like, you're dealing with 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old guys, 21. They're going to, they're there for 3 or 4 years. Some of them are there 3 or 4 years. You got to keep them interested. They're going to get bored if you're doing the same. All right, well, we're going to do this number of reps and we're going to run this many wind sprints. And, I'm overgeneralizing here, but it's finding ways to keep things fresh and new and on their toes. And that, that's again, back to the leadership and how do you keep getting the most out of these players?
Yeah. The other things he had from the All Blacks were, I had 2 other things. One was another saying that they have is that no one individual is above the team. And he sounds like he's really taken that to heart, especially kind of like in this age of NIL, right? Making sure everyone understands that it's not you, it's the team. And the last one was it's an honor, not a job.
It's an honor. I got to find that one. I did write it down, but he that was back to when he talks. It seems like the team meets with, I don't want to say it's sports psychology, but outside motivational speaker, somebody comes in and talks to him, throughout the off season, which I think is really cool. So it's fresh perspective. It's somebody who's not directly connected to the program, but is certainly carrying forward the message and the things that Coach Smart and the other coaches want to instill. But he's talking about, I asked the guys, 3 years ago, you're 16 years old, you're playing high school football. Did you ever envision yourself being, playing football at the University of Georgia? Did you ever envision yourself, winning an SEC championship? Did you ever envision yourself winning a national championship? And some of the guys may say yes, some of the guys may say no, but at the end of the day, that's kind of what you were dreaming about, right? And they all say, those were our goals, like, be at a big time Division I program or be at Georgia, win an SEC, win national championship. So he says, look, guys, you're living your dream. You're living your dream now. And, and then that's where you got not the pressure is the privilege, but it is a privilege, to play for the University of Georgia. And so, the way he laid it out, though, was a lot more eloquent than I. And he didn't lose his train of thought either. But
like you said, he was definitely the whole thing. I would say was from the heart. He didn't miss a beat. I know you said you had seen him speak. That was the first time I had seen him speak. I think that actually was the first time I'd seen him definitely in that kind of setting. I had seen Rick, I got to see Rick a few times, but for Kirby, that was the first one. And I mean, his command of the room is impressive, first of all. And I did just want to reiterate what you said, like the whole CEO comment, because that's something that I've always heard people kind of speculate, like, Kirby Smart, graduate of Terry College of Business, he could have been pretty successful in the business world if he hadn't gone into coaching. I've heard so many people say that, and I never had any reason to disagree with it. But I definitely have a reason to agree with it now after seeing him speak to all of us that night. It was impressive. The command of the room, and he was so relatable. I mean, like the things that you're saying, Greg, when you're talking about, he was using the word like your company, because he was making analogies for us, right? In the room and kind of helping explain things in terms that we would understand. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think that's, again, back to my earlier comment about just being able to connect with people, with parents, with players, and being able to speak in terms that, the audience can understand. If he's talking to a group of coaches, he may not be having that exact same talk, but, or players, but, he wasn't. He was talking to alumni and friends of the university. And so it's, he tailored the discussion towards that. But he also showed just how much interaction he has with the players and how much he cares. I mean, one of the other things he mentioned was bringing in I think it was 4 portal transfers, Jim, and John, I think there's 4 or 5.
How many do we bring? I know it was at least 3.
Yeah.
We got Rara, Dominic,
and then the kid from A&M.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was one of the
Rara's Mississippi State. We got a DB from A&M.
So, but Kirby said that he wants to make sure that these guys coming into the program after being somewhere else that that they're assimilating, that they're everything's okay with them, and he says, I guess this was a couple 2-3 weeks ago, Jim. So they've been back at school for roughly 6 weeks, maybe this semester, and so he's called each one of them in and sat down and asked them, how are the workouts? How are the facilities? How's the team? And almost to the man, everyone said, well, the workouts are pretty similar and the facilities are really nice. And, teams, really, taken to the team. And the one thing they say though, Coach, it is just so much harder here at University of Georgia academically. He was kind of jabbing some people at other school who won't say which one. He's like, I actually have to go to class here. I can't just take the class on the computer. And it's like, no, son, you gotta go to class. That's really important. That's why you're here. Yeah. And, he does take that interest in the players. It's not about, hey, we're able to get these guys to come over and they're going to help us win. He wants to see, how they're actually doing. And seems to be very in tune on the academic side, to the point of saying that he was proud of the team's GPA, and that they weren't DAL this year, unlike other years, and everyone kind of said DAL, and then Kirby says dead ass last. Yes. Which I thought was pretty funny. They were second to DAL. Yes. But he said there's room for improvement. And but the overall GPA for Georgia student athletes was above 3.0. I think it was like 3.2, which is that's all student athletes combined. And right. Before, it's not football really, but before Kirby spoke, President Moorhead was up there and spoke about the incoming freshman class, or what they anticipate the incoming freshman class to be. And I think, Jim, help me, they got 40 some odd thousand applications for roughly 7,000 spots that they can accept into this freshman class. And I started doing the percentages, and that's less than 20%. I came up with somewhere around 17% acceptance rate. Freshmen, and they rattled off some ACT scores and GPAs, so basically if you don't have a 4.0 and and you're in the top 75 percentile on your test scores, you're going to be pretty tough to get in, let's put it that way. So really good for the university, but the academic standards have certainly risen from the days of me or you all going to school, and that's great. The degree brand is worth a lot more, and that's one of the things that was talked about from on the academic side.
Amen.
And that I will say, like, a lot of people will kind of come in, and not a lot of people, I guess maybe a lot of people, I don't know, folks that don't care about football will be like, why are these football coaches making so much money? But I mean, I guarantee you, back-to-back national champions in football, that increases the amount of applications coming in.
Visibility, it's marketing dollars. It's exactly. There's no doubt about it. I mean, can you show a percentage or a direct correlation? You probably not with great specificity, but there's no doubt about it. I mean, you're winning back-to-back national championships. Your brand is getting televised nationally, and you're just pulling from a broader pool of applicants, and very qualified applicants, it seems, based on the what we heard. It's great.
Oh yeah. I mean, he rattled off some pretty good. I didn't write it down. I can't remember what he said, but he had a good he had a bit of a dig at like North Carolina colleges, which I thought was pretty funny. But I can't remember exactly who it was, but just know that he did it. And when I say he, I mean talking about President Moorhead, but I mean, I think what was it? 32 Rhodes Scholars in 2022. Only 3 of those attended a public school or public university, and one of those was from Georgia. So Yeah. I mean, the academics, I think I'm going to say, John, I feel like we were there during the upswing. I don't know that we were there. I'm sure it's even crazier now, but I know like with Hope Scholarship, when that, came, that was a big turning point in academics at Georgia as well. So,
I mean, it was a big turning point for for a lot of folks. Like, there's a lot of states
yeah.
that enacted like similar scholarships and stuff. As a matter of fact, the year after I graduated is when they privatized student loans, the student loan program. Because but the year I graduated was the last year that you could get like a government backed student loan. We could really get off the rails on this topic, but the student loan industry completely imploded in 2005.
Well, we all have we're talking about three dads here with kids getting close to that age.
So, yeah.
We'll table that. We'll table that. For the podcast.
Discussion. For another.
That's for the podcast after the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh man. I did the one thing I wanted to make sure we mentioned, one thing that I thought was pretty funny. It was actually towards the end. So Kirby, he did take questions from the crowd. I had a question prepared. Greg can attest that I've raised my hand several times, but I never got his attention. So I'll say what I was going to ask. I'll tell you my question. It was all right. So Kirby, it's 1996. You're sitting at Allen's. You're having a hamburger with Mike Bobo and a beer, and someone walks in. Maybe it's me, maybe it's someone else from this room, and they say, "I'm from the future." And Kirby Smart, you're the head coach of Georgia. You just coached Georgia to back-to-back national championships. You just named Mike Bobo your offensive coordinator. Oh, and by the way, your former teammate Will Muschamp, who's gone now, he's the co-defensive coordinator. And like, how Kirby, how would you have reacted to that in 1996? So that's what I was going to ask him. Didn't get to, but actually, as I was talking through that, I did remember he did talk about the Bobo hire, which John, we haven't had a podcast since that happened, right? So I don't think we've talked about that.
Oh, something happened with Bobo? I had no idea.
Yeah, and I got a quote here. That's one of the things I scribbled down, Jim.
Drop it.
I can assure you, as much as I love Coach Bobo, we're going to get after it this year. There's nobody I'd bet on more than someone with a chip on their shoulder.
That's yes.
You could ask one Stetson Bennett about that quote.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, my sense was like, if I wasn't personally worried about Bobo, but had I been, like, hearing Kirby talk about him would have made me not worry about him. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, obviously would have loved for Monken to run it back yet again. Although and I'm still disappointed we never got the Todd Monken running it back graphic, John, that we always wanted. But yeah, Bobo should have made it. Was there a graphic when Bobo was announced? I don't think there was. I feel like that was a miss. Social media team, but at any rate, but yeah. So that was exciting to hear him say that. That was the good. I'm glad you got that note.
Yeah,
I didn't get the exact down.
Yeah, I never doubted for a minute that complacency is something that would be tolerated. By Coach Smart, but just reaffirms that every time you hear him talk, and it's what was done in the past is great, and but that's the building blocks, and you just continue to build from there, and every season's a new season. So, as much as I don't want to mention Alabama, I think that's some of the mantra that they had there, and he's carried that over, and it makes sense. So, just you gotta what you did last year is last year, and it's back to what we were talking about earlier. How do you keep things interesting, not become dull or do the same things over and over?
Right.
Mix it up enough to where you're getting better. So that's why they're paying him, I don't know, millions and millions of dollars a year to coach football, and you and I and John get to sit around and drink bourbon on a Monday night and talk about it.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And drop hot takes on different things.
Yeah, exactly.
He did. So there's a funny moment when he was taking questions. As he kind of like segued into the questions, he offered up the Bobo thing. Like basically, he basically was like, "I'm going to talk about the offensive coordinator before anyone even asks it because I know that's what you want to know." So he talked about that. But I know the last question was about Kirby and his speeches, his locker room speeches. And the way the gentleman framed it was basically like, we've all heard some of the speeches, and he was like they're quite motivational. And he's like, so what are some things that like what's some advice you would give for those of us who are not coaching but maybe trying to motivate like our team, like our work team. And so it was a couple of funny things in the response. Like he did say that like basically like there's the theories out there that he's kind of doing it on purpose and he wants him to go viral and things like that. And so, but Kirby said that his friends actually think that too. And all of his friends come to him and are like, you wanted that to leak. And he's like, I promise I did not want that to go viral. I'm not trying to get that out there. But then like when he got into his real answer again, it just kind of tied it back in to everything. Actually, like to a lot of what you were saying earlier, Greg, he said that like, passion's very important. You got to speak from the heart. You got to be yourself. He said kids nowadays can see right through some BS, is what he said. He said that he does not spend a lot of time like writing down those words. He doesn't have prepared speeches. And he said, which you can probably tell from some of the things you've heard.
Oh man, they're so good.
But he said, but they're coming from my heart. So that was pretty
good. The
good.
other thing that we learned, which you remember just after the national championship game, there was a leaked audio. And for a few days, people thought it was the locker room speech that he gave before the national championship game about, this is simple. Just go out there and, knock them on their ass and, something like that. And it was very colorful, we'll just say. He's like, no, I don't have that much hate in my heart for TCU. That was Tennessee. And then he went on a little tangent about Tennessee and Florida. Let's just say that, as we all do, gets great pleasure from beating them. But I just thought it was hilarious. I don't have that much hate in my heart for TCU.
Yeah.
Something to that effect. He
did,
sure.
Yeah, he said, I don't have that hate in my heart for TCU. I have that hate in my heart for Florida. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And then he talked about Florida and Tennessee. He was, dropping out records, a lot of times. He
was there too. And it's not lost on him that, he's like, we lost 5, I guess he was a red shirt. 5 times to Tennessee. And
exactly.
He's keeping receipts on some of that, or has, which is good, and, as we did, we all suffered for many, many years of, Florida and Tennessee. It's like, God, if I could ever just beat them, You need a drive back from Jacksonville with a terrible headache and a sore butt from the whooping that we took.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, but he's one of us, right? Like he gets it. He has that hate. He has that same hate for these schools that we do. And I don't know, that's why I love him so much.
Agreed.
I don't know. Again, I think he's one of us, man.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. He is he's a dog through and through.
Awesome. Oh, go ahead, JP.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I just love the speeches, man. The leaked audio. Whoever is the media maestro or whatever behind those media leaks, man, just keep doing what you're doing, please, sir. Or madam.
Good call.
It's great too, because it's motivational. It's not like maybe if you like a Bobby Knight, old school, where he's
right.
Berating some player or laying into people. And I'm sure that happens, and that's part of being a coach. You can't always, you got to be hard on people, but to a point. But it's typically him, trying to get people fired up and reminding them of all the things that they've done to get to that particular point in time and all the hard work.
Right.
And you got to do that, because those guys, you see it on the videos that are put out there by the university or what's on social media. They're working out 5 days a week in the off season, running, and then all the conditioning and stuff. And going to school. Yeah, I bet you they do have some aggression they want to take out, but it's getting them to channel that aggression and do it in a way that's productive. And that's, again, back to he gets the most out of his players. And, part of that's through his speeches. And, we'd all be running through, a wall for him if they asked us to.
I'll say he got multiple standing ovations. When he was walked to the podium, he got a standing ovation. But the last line that you dropped, the hate in my heart part, that got a standing ovation for him as well. At the
It was
end.
just hilarious too. The way he said, "I don't have much hate for TCU."
It was good. I did kind of linger afterwards a little bit, but I ended up I did. I kind of like brushed by with him when he was on his way out and just said, thanks, coach. And he patted me on the shoulder and said, go dogs. So I know John was a little disappointed that I didn't ask Kirby if he remembered my encounter with him at the Bronco Nagurski Award in 2011. So maybe next time.
Probably did. He probably did. Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll get another opportunity. They'll come back to Charlotte next year again. I think it's just on the circuit. It's good that the university gets out there and, tries to see alumni that are, in the surrounding area. And really a fantastic evening. I mean, I walked away just like, and part of it is, we all know that they're trying to raise money, and that's a good thing. And I'm sure people's wallets were easily opening when they were followed up with, "Hey, would you mind? Last year you did this. Can you do 10% more?" Sure.
Right.
When winning, it's easy to ask people for money, I suppose.
Yeah, for real. Well, yeah, no, I just want to say again, thank you for the invite, Greg, and bringing me to that. It was it's a great event. Dinner was phenomenal. We met some other dog fans there. It was pretty cool. It was a good night.
You're basically the orchestrator of putting a lot of Twitter faces, like our Twitter names with faces, if that makes sense. Like everybody walking around like my buddies, like they make fun of you, like, oh yeah, Twitter, your Twitter people. Is like, no, I've actually met a lot of these people. Like it's not pretend.
No, it's not. And it's look, I didn't get on Twitter until 2019, and it was just kind of on a whim after my 30-year high school reunion. And there was a friend of mine and encouraged me to get on Twitter. I was like, nobody cares what I have to say, and then all of a sudden, you start following, and I don't know how I started following Wise Dog, and then I started following
Cat. You can't miss Wise Dog on Twitter.
Yeah, and I started following Outlaw Catarita, and then we had the COVID season, and I think if nothing else, it did bring a lot of people together over Twitter because we were all kind of stuck at home on Saturdays instead of being in Athens, and then. Back as we talked at the beginning of the podcast, when the Clemson game rolled around, people were just ready to go and hadn't been out, and it's just been fantastic. And we really have made some great true friendships through Twitter, and this is certainly evidence of it. And those will continue. There's just good quality people, and we share a passion towards football and the university, which is great.
Well, I can tell you, like, as a person that has partaken in the tailgates and not attended the games, I'm eternally grateful for you, because some of my core memories of a Georgia fandom have been at your tailgate, even though I haven't been to the game, and it's because you were able to put those on and were gracious enough to invite us to partake. One of my favorite memories that I'll ever have is my son berating Tennessee fans after the Tennessee game.
Yeah. That was one of the more satisfying UJ football games I've ever been to, honestly. I mean, there's some that stick out of my mind, like LSU in 2013, the Notre Dame game, both of them, both in South Bend and in Athens, Tennessee. I mean, that was as loud, consistently loud as I've ever seen Sanford Stadium. The entire game we were making noise, and then it rained. It was just epic at the end. But anyway,
I think it got louder when it started raining.
Yeah,
that game. It was kind of weird.
But John, thank you so much for saying that. It means a lot, and I love doing it. I really do. It brings me a lot of joy, and love being around the people. I guess we'll give a plug for G Day for those listening. Would love to have you join us on April 15th in Athens. Just look on Twitter. We'll put out some information. But me and Rodeo Dog and a few others are going to throw up the tents and order Sauce House Barbecue and do it upright and then go watch G Day. So anyone is welcome to join us. And if you can get out of the soccer/baseball for a day, you get up there. We'll feed you and show you a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. How did rodeo get roped into all that?
I met Scott in Athens, or excuse me, in Charlotte. I didn't know him. We had, communicated once or twice on Twitter and came by and he's like, man, I do a tailgate every week, for every home game. And he was just talking to me about, man, this had to be a lot of work. I was like, yeah, it was. This is after I'd finally calmed down from the help not showing up. And we just kind of bonded over tailgating because we both enjoy it a lot. And we got back together at the end of the season in 2021 and put on pretty good size tailgate, which John, you were there, I believe, at the Georgia Dome for the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
And you came out for that. And then just stayed in touch throughout the off season. And then we hooked up again to do the kickoff game in Oregon. And then, we've gotten together from time to time. But Scott's a great guy. And he's got a few other, his friend Zach and DT, and he's got a good crew that come help set up and take down. So lucky to have him.
That's awesome. Yeah, whole crew.
Just don't let me and AO set up because we set up the wrong tailgate.
Oh, okay. That's another classic story. Maybe real quick, Jim. I know we're maybe running over here on time, but the first.
There's no time. This is my kind of podcast, Greg. There's
okay.
No time.
Well,
this is where Wise Dog gets mad.
Yeah, we'll try to keep it brief. I did not get to go to the Sanford game because it was right after Oregon, and I just needed a weekend at home to unpack and get organized. But so I come down to Kent State, and we had tailgated at tent number 1, big black canopy tent on the Reed Hall lawn the prior season, and can only assume that we'd be in the same tent. That's kind of what we were told and what I expected. So I show up around 9:30 or so. It was a noon kick, so maybe it was 9 o'clock, but Jim's there and Adam Owens and Dwight and a couple other Twitter folks, and I'm like, okay guys, help me set up. We just setting up the beer and the food and kind of get it all set up. And this nice woman walks up and she says, why are y'all setting up my tailgate? I have no idea who you are. and I was like, well, this is our tent. And she's like, no, it's not. And then another gentleman, Bruce, it's in our tailgate group. He says, no, we're tent 2 this year. And so we all kind of got a big chuckle, but it was a bit of a cluster because we had already dumped all of our beer and quite a bit of it into her coolers. And so the Kent State game was a bit of a mishmash of, okay, I think this is yours, this is mine. But they ended up being a really nice group of people for the rest of the season, a bunch of folks from Marietta. And so
nice. Really? Okay. Well, they're in my neck of the woods.
Yeah. A bunch of folks from Marietta, and it's just pure coincidence. One of my fraternity brothers somehow got into their group. I hadn't seen him in 25 years. Good guy. I was actually friends with, pretty good friends with him back in the day. He's tailgates there with them, and his son's now at Georgia. So it's kind of cool to reconnect. But that's the great part about being up there in Athens on a Saturday. You get to see so many people, and not too many places better to spend a fall afternoon.
Yeah,
really is.
For sure. No, that was hilarious. So I'll never forget that. I was dying.
Embarrassing. It was embarrassing as hell, but funny now.
Well, the best was like before it all got sorted out, and we were like trying to defend it. We're like, no, this is our tailgate. Yeah. This is classic. Well, I do. Let's see. I had a couple more things. One quick note. we do have to acknowledge our sponsor while we're on. So season 3 of My God Podcast, just remind everyone, is presented by Oxia Time, custom watch company. Be sure to go check them out. They've got a new 2022 National Champions watch collection. I will say, John, I don't know if you've done this yet. I had never really worn the nylon strap. I've got the nylon strap on now. So when you get one of these watches, it comes with the stainless steel band and the nylon strap. I didn't know how to put it on correctly. And John Canaris, owner of Oxytime, I know he listens. He's probably going to laugh when I say, like, I was kind of embarrassed to ask him, like, how to get that strap on the watch. And I'm sure he would have explained it to me, because he's that's how he is. But I found a YouTube video on how to put on those kinds of watches, so it can dress it down a little bit, make it a little bit more casual if you don't always want to have the whole stainless steel band on your Swiss made watch going on. But yeah, so everyone, go ahead, John.
It's off season, Jim.
It is. Yeah, well, season 3. We brought. You gotta be a little bit more laid back. Yeah, so go check them out. Oxiatime.com. That's AXIATIME.com. I wanted to make sure, John, we have to have a basketball minute. Fletcher. We told Fletcher.
Oh, yeah.
Told Fletcher we'd have a basketball minute. I don't know, Greg, do you watch Georgia basketball at all, or are you on the JP segment?
It's been so painful the last several seasons.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg.
But living in North Carolina, Jim and I mean, it's basketball country up here. So and actually, I follow more of UNC, and because I live here in Davidson, they're in the A10. I do get a healthy dose of basketball, and love for Georgia to be good or better.
Yeah, I always feel like it shouldn't be. I feel like it's got to be harder to be as consistently bad as we've been than it is to be good. I don't know. That's just kind of how I feel. Maybe I'm crazy. Here's my thing. So I two things. One, apparently, John, I think Fletcher. I kind of feel like he was maybe saying, if we had more episodes, Georgia basketball would win more. I'm not sure. Did we figure out that math? I don't know. So we're trying, Fletcher. Hey, maybe the Dogs can go on a run at the SEC tournament. So unfortunately, we have 0 buys. We're on the very first opening night. But I think the draw is favorable. So you get LSU, who is pretty bad. If we lose to LSU, that would be quite disappointing. But if we can get through LSU, then we got Vandy, and then who knows? I think Kentucky would be next. All teams we've beaten. So
listen, we just need a tornado and for Jim to stop making desks.
That's true. Which, again, reminder, I was in the Georgia Dome when the tornado hit it. So there's that as well. But yeah, man, it's frustrating. The only other thing I'll say is I've always been a big defender of Stegman Coliseum. Like, whenever people say, we need a new arena, that's why they're not successful. I've never really agreed with that, but I'll say right now, considering the fact that the roof on Stegman is like literally falling apart, tear it down. So that's my message to Josh Brooks. I think you use that as your excuse to make a change, and you get rid of Stegman and you build a new state-of-the-art arena. And I can't believe I'm saying that. Like, me 15, 20 years ago would have never imagined myself saying something like that. But that's where I'm at now. That's my current opinion. So we'll see.
Yeah, the Stegosaurus will be 60 years old next year. It might be time. But it was the eighth wonder of the world when it was built. It was pretty cool to see some of those old pictures out there. And the architecture for 1964 was advanced for sure.
The picture that the Hargret Library tweeted out, I think last week, with just the roof.
Yeah, that's
you guys see that? And
that was cool. Really,
that was pretty cool. My joke was that that was the inspiration for SoFi Stadium in LA. Apparently,
could be. Could have some, trademark or copyright use there.
There were like gates on it, so neither John nor I drove a motorcycle over it. As is rumored. I think the rumor was Jake Scott did that.
I think it was real. I don't know if I think it was true from a long time ago, but listening to some people, they swear that he did it.
Yeah, I think it was Jake Scott from the stories that I heard.
Yeah, that's how I remember it. We'll go with that. Checks out. Seems good.
Yeah, the pictures that they posted were just amazing, because I remember thinking to myself, man, that was an engineering feat back then.
Yeah.
because the way that they posted it was like all the framing and all that kind of stuff that they had to do progressively over time. It was impressive. But that said, they just need to tear that thing down.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I like it. I like the place, but when you're having to like put band-aids on it, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to make a change. What was let's tie it back in, Greg. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional.
Growth is optional.
Maybe we can apply that to Georgia basketball.
Yeah, I think so. Where would the new arena go? I was reading something where, and I don't know where it could possibly go downtown, but someplace, I mean, I guess they could put it there if they really wanted to, but that would be pretty cool if they moved it,
I saw that too. I saw Logan Booker tweeted something about that. And it was to the point.
That's what it was. Yeah.
I should have just asked him what he was talking about. Yeah.
Who the heck knows where they
I got a Google Maps and I was like looking at downtown. Like, is there a spot in downtown where they could go? Because I can't think of anything.
They could take the old Holiday Inn Express, but we need hotels. Maybe swap it out, do a land swap with the hotel over there where the segment is, which would be nice, and put the Coliseum there. But land's not plentiful abutting the campus, but that would be the challenge because it would take, I'm assuming, 24 months probably to build something, replacement facility.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't know that they actually will. I guess it depends. We'll see what the cost benefit analysis would be on the replacing it. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm not going to hold my breath on them tearing it down, but that's kind of my take these days. So I know, Fletcher, that was multiple minutes. So hopefully that's our good basketball fix. Go Dogs in the SEC tournament. I'll be cheering them on. First game Wednesday, the late game on Wednesday against LSU. So I think they'll start, whatever it is, like 30 minutes after the conclusion of the first game. So it'll be a late tip off on Wednesday. So
amen. Go Dogs.
All right. Yeah, seriously.
Go Hoop Dogs.
Go Hoop Dogs. I don't, Greg, any last impressions, thoughts from you? What do you think? Odds of a three-peat. Any other thoughts?
I'm about as bullish as they come. But I balance my optimism and reality in that, we are set up nicely, and you look at the offensive line and, some of the defensive players that are coming back, and then, guys that were second string or, kind of substitutes last year, they're going to have another year to grow. And then you look at our schedule, we set up with 4 home games to start. The October stretch will be a little rough. We only get 1 home game, but that's okay. I think the competition isn't terribly strong. It's competition we should handle. Yeah. And then you get into the heart of the season in November, and that's where, if you're going to be a championship team, that's kind of when you find out. So, yeah, have I made my hotel reservation for Houston? Yes, I have. But I'm part of the get ahead of myself crowd, and I guess Wise Dog inspired that this year. So I can always cancel. I haven't bought the airline ticket yet, but hotel room is there. I'd love to be in Houston, and just look forward to being with everyone again. I'm glad we have G-Day. It's a nice chance to convene at least once before the long stretch and then the summer. But I will be in Athens and can't wait to cheer the Dogs on. And we're gonna give them hell. I think anyone who plays this is not going to get an easy out. That's for sure.
Amen. Right. Amen.
Book your hotel, guys.
Yeah.
They're going fast, and I'm not the only one. So just so you know, I won't out anybody, and I'm not trying to jinx it. But anyway,
I love it. Well, Greg, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you guys. It was a pleasure. This is really, I mean that. It's fantastic to be with you.
Well, you've been a huge part of the podcast, even though this is your first time joining us, talking to us. But like John said, you've hosted us so graciously so many times. We've met so many people through you, like live, real, in person. So I did just want to make sure everyone knows. So Greg's handle on Twitter is Dogs, spelled the right way, DAWGS, Dogs fan 4, the number 4 ever. So make sure you go out there and follow Greg. It's a great dog, the DGD.
Amen.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right, Greg. Yeah,
All
man,
right,
thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
And,
we'll talk soon. And
go
Jim, we'll
Dogs.
get together now that it's the off season. I'll grab you and we'll get a swift pint here soon.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. We have to remember that we can actually hang out at home.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
All right, guys. See you later.
All right.
Amen.
Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.